So a man only has one task, and I don't think it's that much to ask for, really. Think about this.
Only one task? You only have one task in a relationship? I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of more multitasking than just paying for stuff.
SAR Experience.
Привет, it's Odessa Mama. Welcome to Odessa, Ukraine, and welcome back to another Vodka Vodkas with me, Connor Klein. So in today's video, I'm going to be reviewing another video by Anna Bay. Of course, going to link down below and up in a card the previous video, which got a huge response. Yeah, there were a lot of Anna Bay's fans who obviously don't watch my content normally, who came across the video and tagged me personally, which is fun because I always think it's a good sign of the value of my content if the people who I'm teaching you to avoid are provoked by it. So definitely that was a good sign that her fans came over, and the fact that she has a legion of women who are so desperate to be successful gold diggers that they were so incensed by my video, where I outlined exactly how she outlines how to manipulate men into buying you stuff. So pretty clear what genre that's in as a video. I did of course get a lot of positive comments from guys who watch the video who want to avoid girls like that and want to avoid taking advantage of, particularly here in Eastern Europe, in Russia, Ukraine and Belarus. And in the meantime, since that video, some new information has come to light that is just golden. So it was my hunch when I made that video. I just felt she doesn't seem like a Scandinavian gold digger. She seems very similar to the Russian genre, and she has revealed on her YouTube channel that she was in fact born in the USSR and her mother is, to quote her, Russian. Quelle surprise. I'm not super shocked to see that. So again, that first video, it turns out, even though I didn't realize it at the time, she is actually of Russian heritage, born in the USSR. So and she said that she grew up in Sweden. This is the Swedish part, because she didn't really come across as a Swedish woman who would, be looking to live off men. Of course, you have women who do that everywhere, and I actually don't personally have a problem with what everyone wants to do as long as it's consensual and as long as it's transparent. And that was the issue I see. What she does is that it's not transparent. She doesn't say, hey, well, we'll get into that in today's video, which is going to be a lot of fun. So on top of that, I've been recommending to my recent bootcamp participants, which was Slavic Seduction Secrets, that they watch her videos, the one or two. I mean, she does have other videos, to be fair, where she outlines how to color match between clothes and skin tone for women, and actually she has developed a pretty elegant look for women in her mid-30s. So I don't recommend that you watch those videos, but the ones where she's talking about getting stuff out of men, definitely you need to be watching those to know how to avoid her and her ilk. So I'm super pumped because I went back and found the first video on her YouTube channel. Now, she did have a blog before and all this stuff. And if you're interested in that, definitely go and Google her. Google as much information as you can because it's kind of pretty interesting. I'm going to call her by the name she uses in her channel, Anna Bay, just because it'll make it more simpler. But there are a lot of allegations that's not her real name, and there are reasons why she wanted to have a fresh start. But again, that's not this video will turn into 3 hours if I go into everything about Anna Bay's background. So let's go to today's video, which we're going to review because I had a lot of fun. It's a short one, and I will of course put a link to it in the description. Watch the whole thing through, but I think we're going to go through most of it here. And the title is, should men pay for everything in a relationship? So let's get into it. I'm super excited about this one.
Girls, I just really need to speak up about this topic because I feel like in today's society it's just getting more and more taboo for when a man provides for the women. 50 plus years ago, that was the norm. That was the norm because we have gender roles.
So there she starts off and she says, 50 years ago this was the norm, that men provide and women basically, well, she hasn't gotten any further in the video. So she said men provide. This was the normal general. Now, sure, that's true in the West. 50 years ago, definitely men were providing most of the family. Actually, today they still provide most of the family income, but they were providing even more of it. It was definitely an expectation that they would do so. Now, we also have to put that in the cultural context. Well, women didn't have the same access, obviously, to making as much money 50 years ago than they do today. And also, not all women actually just lived off men and went out and worked and whatnot. And what's really interesting about the revelation that she is born in the USSR, I'm going to just assume that her grandmother was also born in the USSR. And her grandmother, because it was communism, and actually, because she's talking about 50 years ago, they had to go out and work, and actually they had no choice about it. So they actually contributed not just at home, not just the more traditional general, they actually also went out and worked. And before that, it wasn't 50 years or 70 years ago, now during the Second World War, they were out in the factories supporting the war effort. They weren't lounging around on a billionaire's yacht expecting a life of luxury and not working for it, at least not working it in a normal job, etc. So a bit odd, because if you think of her background is being from the Soviet Union, then actually 50 years ago, she would have had no choice to just expect men to pay for everything for her. She would have been told by the Communist Party of USSR, you go and get, actually it wouldn't be you go and get a job, this is your job, you better show up for it Monday morning. So a little bit unrealistic if you think about actually her real origins that have been revealed. So in summary, by saying that, she's basically trying to imply that she's entitled to an uber luxurious lifestyle without actually really providing anything in order to justify that. And she's misrepresenting exactly what gender roles were before. 50 years ago, my grandmother was a doctor. She was out working every day. She wasn't lounging on a billionaire's yacht. I mean, maybe she just never got the opportunity. Fair enough. But it certainly wasn't the expectation that she could do that.
Animals also have gender roles, kind of similar to our gender roles, you know? So we are just living up to our gender roles when we expect a man to provide for us.
That's just weird. Animals have gender roles that are kind of like our gender roles. Let me just think about that for a minute. So there are lots of animals, and what they do in terms of, I guess, providing, like there's probably a million different variations, as I don't know. I mean, some animals like have harems. So there's like, I think there's the seals that have harems, and there's just like one big daddy seal, and he has all these female seals running around, a bit like the Arab harem. Fair enough. So she apparently thinks that's a good gender role setup. What else do you have? You have, I think, sea lions. Actually, they actually carry the offspring in some form as well. Anyways, it gets a bit weird. Obviously, animals develop in certain environments, and then the male and the female of them do certain particular roles. But I don't think they're similar to human roles really whatsoever. And I grew up actually in the countryside, so I'm just thinking. Yeah, female cats go out and they also kill mice and rats and stuff, and female foxes hunt food for the offspring, so that would be providing. Anyways, I'm a bit confused what she's trying to say. She obviously has no idea about the animal kingdom because that's just complete rubbish. Let's go on to what she says.
This is how he is able to show his masculinity.
Oh.
How else is he gonna do that? Through pumping his muscles? Like...
Well, actually, as a guy who doesn't have huge muscles, I'm kind of glad you don't see that as the masculine thing, Anna. So that's just like ridiculous. This is actually a very good lesson for you. So a lot of ways how manipulative Eastern European women try to frame things in order to get guys to buy them things or get guys to pay for everything for them, as she tries to say here, in a relationship or even when you're not in a relationship, is by challenging your masculinity. And they try to make it that you're not a real man, or you're not masculine if you're not paying for all their stuff. That would just make you a simp. And by the way, gold diggers, they love simps because normal girls are, first of all, not into simps, and that actually would be the majority of girls here in Ukraine or Russia, Belarus, in spite of the stereotype. They're not gold diggers, most of them. But gold diggers, they need simps because simps are willing to pay for women in order to try and curry favor with them. That's the whole thing about being a simp. Now, if you don't know what simp is, I made another video about it, so up on the card and down below in the description for your education. But it's not masculine men who are just paying willy-nilly for women. That would be a simp behavior, trying to buy affection. And it's fine to pay for women and pay for sex, and if someone wants to work as a prostitute, that's their life for sure. But what I see a lot with simps is that they pay for women and try and buy their favor and buy basically their way into their pants, but then they want to believe that it was not for the money, and this is the real simp behavior. So really, how do men show their masculinity? It's not by taking out their credit card and paying for stuff. It is by showing their presence, by demonstrating their ability to lead. I went into this so much on my recent online boot camp with the participants to really emphasize that, because if you show up being with this provider frame, hey, I'm here to pay for everything, you will be eaten alive here in Eastern Europe by the gold diggers and the scammers. So it's obviously a continuum. You have the gold diggers, you have the scammers, and you have girls who are prostitutes in between, but actually they're just transparent about it because they just demand straight up money for sex. And yeah, actually I have more respect for them than the scammers for sure, and a little bit more than for the gold diggers. So you need to be really careful to avoid that kind of frame, because you'll basically just be seen as a simp, a foreign simp, and there are a lot of girls here, they're only looking for that, and they are, of course, the gold digging chicks. I've heard that from guys that I've met here, that they got taken to the cleaners by some Russian or Ukrainian chick because, yeah, she brought up this masculine energy. You're not just giving me enough masculine energy. I think a great question would be, well, what's your feminine energy then? We'll get into that a little bit later.
I mean, a woman, she shows her femininity in many ways to the man. Her role is to be the caregiver, which she is. And she expresses that by being nurturing, caring, take care of a household, etc.
Interesting, she talks about being a caregiver, but none of her videos I see how to clean an apartment, cook an amazing meal. She's not saying make borscht like my babushka, for example. So caregiver, and this is something that comes up a lot. It's these fake traditional values that you see, especially with younger women in Ukraine. So we'll say women, especially under 30. The idea that they can cook, clean, look after a household. I don't see too much evidence of that, especially if they're really, really beautiful. I always like to joke, and I've said before in the channel, that Italian guys, they cook so much better than Ukrainian women today. And I'm not knocking the babushka, because Ukrainian food here is really tasty and amazing, but you're probably not going to get that much from the younger chicks here. So this is basically what I see, is that they've become princesses in that sense. They're basically princess values, fake traditional values. Guys are expected to be still the provider and do all this chivalry and whatnot, and women just think that they're supposed to be young and beautiful. That's it, and they don't have to bring anything else to the table. I have a great podcast with my friend Andy, my British friend, where we dive into where to find the best women in the world, 5 best countries, and we actually talk a little bit about that, about why beauty isn't everything, and actually being the full package requires being able to basically provide value in some other way, because looks and age and youth, they obviously fade, and they fade dramatically once a woman gets over, we'll say 35 in general. I'm talking general, not saying every single woman, of course.
So a man only has one task, and I don't think it's that much to ask for, really. Think about this.
Only one task? You only have one task in a relationship? I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of more multitasking than just paying for stuff.
Us women, I mean, we are responsible for so many more things than just putting bread on the table. We are responsible for, bringing life to this earth. We are responsible for making that life survive on this earth, and there are plus so many more things that we are responsible of.
Now, clearly, she's correct that women still bear children. So that is one extra task. And for sure, women need to choose men who are going to stick around and help them when they're vulnerable. Obviously, they've got the baby, and just after the baby, for sure, when they can't provide for it, unless they have, they can, I guess, technically provide if they have savings or a family, but it's obviously better for the father to be involved. So that's definitely very pertinent. But besides that, what even did she say? It was just like so weird that she has the list.
We are responsible for making that life survive.
No. Obviously, if you're a guy in a relationship, and you will take her frame just to provide, that's an essential contribution to making that offspring survive, helping it survive. And obviously, in general, so guys, they just ignore the children 100%. Not even in so-called traditional Ukraine and Russia is that the case. Obviously, guys are involved in rearing the children to a certain extent. Now, it is true here that women in Eastern Europe see that as more their priority, a priority for them. as opposed to man in relationships. And I still think that's true overall, that especially when the children are young, they're going to be more willing to make sacrifices in their career, for example, and definitely focus on spending more time with the children than the man does, than say in Western Europe on average from what I've seen. But to say that you just have one task, one role, that's just bring the dough. Also, let me point out, she does not, at least she doesn't present herself having any children, looking after a household, doing anything else other than just getting a guy to provide luxury for her, other than doing her YouTube channels, videos, and building her brand. So it's kind of funny. It's not kind of funny. It's hilarious. I don't know if she gets the irony.
Responsible of. So I think, going to work, paying the bills is not really too much of a big deal for the man to do.
Just go to work and bring in all the dough while I lounge around on the billionaire's yacht. I mean, it's kind of odd.
So all these cheapskates today that are complaining about women who they claim are materialistic because a woman who has a mentality that she expects the man to be the breadwinner, they manipulate women by saying that she's a gold digger.
Now, first of all, you said why men should pay for everything. You didn't say that man should be the breadwinner, as in the primary breadwinner. In general, men are the primary breadwinner anyways, whether it happens to be here in Eastern Europe or in Western Europe, because they just on average make more money. And women have what's called hypergamy, which is to look for guys who are more successful than they are. In general, it's biological in terms of evolution. It doesn't mean that all women, we're saying that in general women look for this and men look to be able to provide in general, but they don't necessarily want to pay for everything and feel like they're just an ATM, because there is the joke here, they're just basically men. And you can say in Ukraine, there's a joke that men are an ATM with a penis. And I think that's exactly how Anna Bay sees things. Wow, I think it's just so amazing she turned out to be Russian.
That she's a gold digger, that she's this, that she's that. Don't buy into that. These are just cheapskates that want to use your body for free. They want to use your femininity for free.
But that would be the definition of a gold digger, and prioritizing having a man for money. And interestingly, I went and looked, of course, at her other content. She has a video that really surprised me. It was because I don't remember exactly the title off the top of my head. It was like 5 rich men to avoid. And I was really surprised, because a lot of the type of guys I thought that she would recommend, she said, no, avoid them. They were the guys who basically had a lot of options, a lot of abundance. You'll hear me use that word a lot in my videos. So they were the kind of guys that a lot of women wanted. Because they had abundance, and because they had presence, and because she mentioned one was like the playboy type, the other one was the old money, that it was guys that basically wouldn't accept being a simp. That she was recommending to avoid. So gold diggers, as I said earlier, they love simps. They're in fact the only women who love simps. That's why simps complain about women. A lot of them get bitter. I have a lot of them who write to me personally, because they frame it up that they are just there to provide, and in fact then they want the woman to live them for something else. You're not going to get that with Anna Bay or her students or her followers, because they want your cash. And they're willing to do a few things for it, but apparently contribute very much to the relationship is not one of them.
Don't buy into that. These are just cheapskates that want to use your body for free. They want to use your femininity for free. They want to use your caring for free.
No, Anna. The reason personally why I don't want to pay for sex is not because I'm a cheapskate. It's because I don't want a prostitute. I'm not against prostitutes. I'm not against prostitution, as long as, of course, it's consensual. But that's not what I'm looking for. One of the main reasons for that, and it's actually, I think, part of the reason why society looks down on sex workers, for better or worse, is the fact that it's seen as too easy. And of course, if I just wanted to have sex, I could go today, I'm sure, if I wanted to, and find a prostitute somewhere in Odessa, but that's not interesting for me, and I certainly don't want to have a relationship with someone who does that, because I don't really respect what they do. Now, I'm not shaming, slut shaming, or whore shaming prostitutes. They're honest and transparent about it. Well, I guess if they are being honest and transparent about it, which is not the women that you see often on Instagram claiming to be models when they don't actually do any modeling, and they're in Dubai and in Moscow and in Istanbul every second weekend on a yacht, or in Monaco as well on these yachts with never any guys who are paying for it there. But for sure, that's not why I'm sure you, for example, don't want to pay directly for sex. And the fact that she frames it as like, you should be paying for sex, is of course the appeal for the simps. Now, for the simp, he will not see it as prostitution. He will see it as, oh, yes, she loves me for who I am and I'm a man, so I just provide. No. Gold diggers like this, they want you because that is your only function to them. And as soon as your money dries up or they find better alternatives to get paid for their time, and whatever, with the few perks, let's be honest, that they're providing between the under the bed sheets, they're gone. They're out of here. And that's why simps end up with broken hearts very, very quickly if they end up in this frame. So you want to avoid that 100%. Obviously, I've hammered that home in today's podcast.
They want you to bring him children to this earth for free, you know? So please, don't buy into these things, and you really need to position this from the beginning in a relationship. If a man cannot accept these terms, then it's just simple goodbye, you know?
I mean, that's a good way of vetting things out, because obviously if she doesn't make that clear and the guy's around and then she can't milk him for money, then she's just wasted her time. So I understand that she's actually giving some pertinent advice to wannabe gold diggers, like basically vet the guy in the beginning. You will see that quite a bit with girls in Eastern Europe who are like her. They will try to figure out, like, are you willing to sponsor them? Are you willing to be the simp? Are you willing to just give them the money for very little in return? Or do you see sex as transactional, basically? And I actually remember I had a girl once ask me whether do I enjoy spending money on women to make them happy. And I also have heard the one, yes, I give feminine energy. You must give masculine energy by buying me stuff. So what is feminine energy? Well, I don't really see what else that she gives them feminine energy other than basically sex. But it's an interesting one to maybe ask someone who is like this, who does believe that men should pay for everything in a relationship. And yeah, I still don't see any videos from, maybe she's going to surprise me. I'm going to make videos about making Vareniki and whatever, Paliemi, maybe because her family is Russian. So,
you are incompatible with each other. There is clearly no future because you have different mentalities and different ways at looking at things. And please, women, there is nothing to be ashamed about. Just don't be manipulated by society is my only advice that I want to give you.
Don't be manipulated by society, women, by thinking that you have equal opportunities to succeed in life, maybe contribute. You can still choose a guy, obviously, who's going to be the main provider, but don't be, manipulated in thinking that, guys shouldn't pay you for sex. So on my recent bootcamp, Slavic Seduction Secrets, we actually go into this about how to test. Well, we do many things like how to test for a gold digger, although this video is probably helping you a lot on that journey if you're trying to avoid one. But actually more importantly, I think, is like whether to test whether you have a good fit in a woman for a long-term relationship here with a woman from Eastern Europe, because you don't want to be, in the short run you have the scammer issue, and then you have, maybe if you're trying to avoid the gold diggers, then the gold digger issue. But if you invest in the wrong person, it's just not a good fit for you in the long term. It's going to be very costly in terms of emotions. You're going to be more invested. You're going to spend a lot of time, in spite of what these girls think, that they only have to show up with youth and beauty, and she's in her mid-30s, so she's pretty close to the wall. But for guys as well, we don't have an infinite amount of time. We do hit our peak between 35 and 45. Actually, I have more videos. If you haven't seen my stuff, maybe just go and look at my channel, but another one going up in the card and down below about the age gap and when you're going to hit your peak, most likely. But you don't want to be wasting years of your life in the wrong person. Of course, money as well. Because believe me, if you're with someone like Anna Bay, it's going to be very costly indeed. So just remember that women like Anna are looking for a simp. They're not looking for a real man or a very masculine man at the end of the day. They're looking for a weak man, a man who's just willing to pay for them and just be easily manipulated into doing that. Listen, if you're putting women on a pedestal, if you're just setting no boundaries with them and just doing everything, they won't respect you, especially here in Eastern Europe. We need to have presence, be able to lead, and actually be able to say no, walk away from negotiating table, as I guess Donald Trump would advise as well. So that is so important. If these are the kind of things that you want to learn more about, I'm going to put below in the description to this video a link to my mailing list because I only open up Slavic Seduction Secrets and Scambuster to my most loyal fans. You need to be on that free mailing list. As a thank you, I'm going to leave up my checklist. 5 biggest mistakes made by Western guys when they come here to date Eastern European women. They may end up paying for everything in a relationship, not just financially, but emotionally and in terms of time as well. So you want to be avoiding those. That's down below. Just go into that. I am going to open it up. Both of them are going to give you an opportunity if you haven't got into them before pretty soon. Definitely Scambuster, I'm going to give you an opportunity to get in on that in the next few weeks, and then later on this year there will be an opportunity to enroll in Slavic Seduction Secrets. So you need to be on that. It's for free. Just go there. It's a bit of a no-brainer if you want to have the opportunity to get further training and actually really invest a small amount of time, a reasonable amount of money, and then actually save yourself just an absolute whack ton in terms of time, emotions, and wasted money. You know, in defense of her, why wouldn't she be digging for gold? Who doesn't want these things? And I think the issue isn't just in the behavior of women like Anna who are gold diggers, even though she resents that term. But I mean, if this is you prioritize having men for material wealth, you're a gold digger. And again, there's a reason why society looks down on that. It's because it's easy. Although she would say it's a lot of work to get the rich one, get the most money out of them. But instead of going there, getting an education, and she did actually have the opportunity to be educated. She did actually start off working and then realize she's probably not going to be ever able to generate the money for the things she wants, or actually get a long-term boyfriend who's actually able to pay for those things, who's not a simp. So that's why she went this direction. She also recommends, by the way, taking money from the guys, basically, or having savings, but basically means getting guys to finance you, and then actually having it so they don't have any leverage over you. Because of course, if you're financially dependent on someone, then they can control you. That's guys who are not sims. That's basically what they do to women, and some of them could even be exploited. But there, she's even trying to remove that. So 100%, you were sure that you were with a simp if you're a girl following her advice. But then it comes down to, why are simps? They encourage this behavior. There are no simps in the world. Girls like Anna Bay couldn't be gold diggers. So I think that is also something that's lost a lot in videos on YouTube that I see from particularly the manosphere or red pill philosophy. They don't really look at, they tend to blame the women all the time. And I think definitely what she does is distasteful because she's not open about it. She's definitely not open about all her past either, but that's a topic for another video, maybe in the future. Let me know if you enjoyed this one, of course, whether I should review her again. But you also have to look at men's behavior. And the fact that so many men today apparently are willing to just be simps and finance women like this without getting anything back in return other than SEX, ostensibly. It's a pretty sad situation. So, don't be a simp for sure when you come to Eastern Europe, because it will be a lot more costly than it's going to be in the West. I can guarantee you that. I will make some future podcasts for sure on topics related to this, especially as I started to elaborate there at the end about the role of men and simps in the whole milieu of men and women and the interrelationship between them today. In particular, obviously, as I emphasize on this region, Ukraine, Russia, and Belarus. Do svidaniya, do pobачення from Odessa Mama. See you very soon in the next video.
SAR Experience.